Welcome to Pond. My name is Mitch Stein. I'm the co-founder, CEO, and Chief Impact Officer. We want to make tech work for good. So we're highlighting and uplifting the critical parts of the impact technology ecosystem through human conversations with the leaders and shapers of the industry. Let's jump in.
Meet Max Friedman, a diligent builder who has never been afraid to put in the work to build something the right way from the foundation up. From the brand to the product and even financial model, he is methodical in ensuring his fundraising platform will stand the test of time to maximize its impact. Hey, Max, thanks so much for joining us. Do you mind introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your company?
Sure. My name is Max Friedman. I'm co-founder and CEO at Givebutter. We're a fundraising platform powering donations, fundraising campaigns, and events for nonprofits and similar organizations like nonprofits that you may volunteer for or have kids that are in, like student groups and sports teams who raise money online.
Awesome. And what moved you to found a company serving the nonprofit sector?
I love technology, first and foremost, and I love helping others. I kind of think of myself similar to our users, although I didn't found a nonprofit. I founded a company that helps others, and I help them sort of scale their missions. And so that was really the silver lining. I like to think of all of our users like change makers, and I like to think of that in my own vein of how I kind of affect change is just through technology and the tools that I build. And technology is fun too, in that it can just reach millions of people by going to a website URL. So that's sort of where it all started, was that passion.
And I know that you've been at this for several years. So how do you feel like your original goal has evolved since you started the company?
Yeah, it's been almost 5 years. So it's evolved quite a bit from really focused on student group fundraising, groups that I had founded or was a part of that were raising money for charity or for themselves to go on trips or bring in a speaker to campus. And a lot of those early users were fundraising for nonprofits or started nonprofits themselves. And as they grew in what they wanted to do with the platform, so did the platform itself. So we expanded from crowdfunding to ticketing and then doing website donation forms. And that was a big focus for basically the first 3 years. And then with COVID, we expanded the event piece into live stream fundraising as well. So doing a lot of virtual events, helping organizations either pivot their in-person events to virtual or just doing a strictly virtual event. And now we're even seeing hybrid events with an in-person component that's very limited, streamed live so that you can reach a much larger audience. And the thing I love about the events is we're good at fundraising events. There's a lot of tools that will help you with events, but will hopefully help you raise more money and drive more awareness and engagement for your event.
Kind of gets at the next question I had, but it's obviously an extremely competitive space for fundraising platforms. So I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but what really makes Givebutter different than your competitors?
Yeah, I love that question. It's easy to start with the name, Givebutter. It's pretty different. And that's kind of a theme, is we like to sort of think of ourselves as a company focused on transparency, authenticity, and the people. Two of the values of our company that are internal and external is people, product. People are at the center of everything we do. But we also lead with our product, not necessarily our sales team or anything else. And so we keep costs down and affordable and transparent, but you don't miss out on the functionality that you'd hope to gain from any online fundraising technology. Building a community is also a really big part of that. So it's not just our people, but your people and the causes that they're supporting. We try to elevate them and their stories to the front as well, and give them a great user experience. So it's always different depending on who's thinking about using Givebutter and what they're thinking about using us for. But those are some sort of high level values that we kind of differentiate on.
And now that you've seen, thousands of fundraisers take place, or even in your own personal life, is there a specific cause or organization or event that was really meaningful or memorable to you?
Probably the one that I always think about is, and I've been saying this for years, is our very first campaign on the platform was for a kosher food truck at GW. There was no kosher dining on campus. And so a change maker, a student, wanted to do something about that, and raised $16,000 in 24 hours, galvanized a bunch of community support. And that was our very first campaign that said, oh, this thing has legs. And I think I see that story over and over. There's different versions and flavors of it, but that sort of taking an individual who wants to do something different, because Givebutter is different. It's just a different fundraising experience. It's a bit of a different uh, approach to raising money. And I think that people who take that on see sort of really fun and exciting results. And that was kind of the first example that I keep seeing over and over and over.
That's awesome. So switching gears a little bit to more industry themes, and want to tap into some of your expertise, but big picture, what do you feel like is the biggest problem in how most nonprofits raise funds online today?
I think the biggest mistake that I see nonprofits make time and time again is that they view their donor experience from a technology standpoint as an afterthought. They put that at the forefront of everything else in terms of their donor relations and their communications and all other aspects. But when it comes to making a gift in that experience, it still feels like we're 20 years ago and I'm buying something on Amazon. These are donations. And I think the giving experience is so important end to end. That PayPal donate button is just not good enough anymore. That HTML form that, people come and there's no SSL certificate, and it's, just filling in a couple form fields. And then it's like, I don't even get an email receipt. These things aren't good enough anymore. And it's a shame that like, I'm even saying this as like a problem. It seems kind of basic, but I see it time and time and time again. And I think prioritizing that donor experience, and I think that people are recognizing it more, which I'm happy to see.
I was just noodling on a LinkedIn post this morning, and I noted nothing makes me madder than seeing a bad online donation form. It's just like there's no excuse anymore.
Yeah, no, it's the first thing. I mean, this is just who I am and the company that I run, but it's the first thing I do. Every nonprofit's website I go to is I just click give or donate, and I just look at it, and I'm just astonished time and time again. You want to create a situation where people are excited to give and excited to share. And I think that sort of creates this slippery slope where you lose trust.
So I know you've seen in the past 10 months, thousands of folks and organizations transitioning to virtual events with Givebutter. What have been the keys to the most successful virtual fundraising events?
Yeah. So great question. We actually just ran the numbers. We saw 15,000 events in a year where you couldn't really have events on Givebutter. Over around 100,000 tickets sold, and almost all of those were virtual. So we definitely learned a lot. It's very difficult to give catch-all advice, and anyone watching this, I'd encourage to go to our blog and watch case studies, because every nonprofit approached this very differently, from 30-minute pre-recorded broadcasts that they just set live at a certain time to 6-hour long or even 12-hour long live streams that lasted an entire day. But the theme that I saw across all of them was just being true to your community and true to your mission. It sounds like such a cliche, but it's just basically meeting people where they're at. And when you really distill what brings your community together, think about events that bring that to the forefront. So food-oriented nonprofits revolving around a cooking show, or creating value through shared food experiences, culinary experiences, online classes. Even doesn't have to be one big event, but more repeated events over a period of time. All the way to, I just gave this example earlier, someone else, but a peer support group, thinking about creating a situation where maybe you don't have such a such a produced event. It's actually something where you bring it down a level and say, we're actually going to invite you in 15-minute intervals to share a story, or do a performance, or just sing a song or play music. So whatever that is for your nonprofit, I think not being afraid to be honest about where you're at, and what's going on, and then connect people around whatever unifies your organization. And it's not going to look the same as, that's probably the biggest underlying thing I'm trying to say, is it's not going to look the same as your in-person event. Don't try to recreate a gala online. It's just a different event. It can be similar, but so I would definitely recommend checking out our blog, givebutter.com/blog. going to those case studies and finding organizations that look like yours, because there's a lot of really great insight there that I'm trying to summarize, but wouldn't do justice in a in a like a 1 or 2 minutes speech.
No, I think if I'm taking the right takeaway, it's basically like, don't resist the differences, right? Like don't try to just redo what you've done before. Like lean into the new medium and do different things. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. So I know you love product and design and technology building, and I think there's a lot of crossover between how you figure out how to make technology experiences delightful and how fundraisers can make their story or cause or campaign just as engaging. And so I would just love to hear a little bit about how you feel like that translates and what you think about in having the best user experience on the site.
I love that question. We just launched a new supporter feed. I love the supporter feed on Givebutter because no one chooses to use Givebutter because of the supporter feed. They're not like, oh, like I'm looking for a better supporter feed. I've never really heard that. But that's the only thing that people can talk about once they use Givebutter. They're like, oh, the comments, the images, the videos that people left, they love that piece of it. And so we just did a whole update that turns your fundraising campaign into, from a one-time, will you donate to my campaign and you come and you give, to a living, breathing experience that brings people back over time. So now when people leave comments, they'll get notified that someone is like saying, oh, wow. And it basically creates this immersive experience that doesn't stop. And so I think that's such an interesting example of designing a product with the community in mind. You look at most fundraising pages, you can picture almost like the GoFundMe template of like gold bar, donate button on one side, the cover photo on the other side. And for us, we put the supporter feed taking up basically 25% of the page. So it's such a prominent piece there. And I think when designing your campaign, thinking of that is really helpful. We provide the bones, the outline, the structure, but people can take that in so many different directions. We've seen people say, when you donate, like draw a picture of a heart, and everyone's just leaving like hearts. Or MagFest, a music and gaming convention, the feed was just filled with memes. It was just like a meme nonstop list going on there. Anyway, it's a fun way to create engagement no matter what you're doing.
So a big thing that I see a lot is whenever there's a new tool, even if it's something like Givebutter where there's no investment to be made per se, changing to do something different is just really hard for a lot of these organizations. What have you seen work best for the person that's making that pitch against some resistance?
This is a timely one. It's not evergreen content here, but COVID has been probably one of the single best like excuses. It's like there's no playbook. It's one thing if you're an organization and it's just times are normal and you're thinking about moving from a tried and true thing that you've done for 20 years over to this thing called Givebutter. It's another thing when COVID just makes you question everything and you need to look for new solutions. And so that's been a huge push to say, let's rethink this in a faster way. That's been seen across the whole industry. And I think what COVID has done, if you were to distill COVID into like, what does that even mean? It's this idea that the virtual experience that your donors have has never been more important. And every refinement that you make scales and helps, whether that's focusing more on recurring giving, whether that's raising more money from your fundraising events, integrating peer-to-peer into your organization, like whatever those goals or priorities are, whatever you're looking to do. That experience is just so much more important. And when you look at the options, similar to how we differentiate, I just think Givebutter really stands out from a cost value perspective. And then the support that you get for all of that, it's hard to match. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that the COVID thing is evergreen, right? Because it's really just about, I mean, that's an obvious thing to point to, but I think the message, right, is you need to figure out the broader thematic thing to point to and bring your evidence. And sometimes it's easier than others, but if you do your work to point that out, it makes your job easier.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And last question I had was, and we've talked about this before, but in the past few months, I just keep finding so many similarities in my own experience as a startup founder and the experiences I see nonprofits encounter.
Mm.
And you've obviously been at this a lot longer than me. So I would just love to hear, what's the most important lesson you've learned as a startup founder that you think is most applicable to nonprofit leaders?
We've been at it for 5 years, and it took 4 years for us to really grow. I talked to a lot of this is most applicable to, I guess, like startup nonprofits or just small nonprofits. But I meet a lot of like single founder nonprofits who run off of a volunteer army, um, and do incredible work, or have a very small staff. And I think that, we're a tech startup, so we're like in growth. We're trying to go from 5 to 10 to 20 to 100 employees, and really scale our impact. Not every nonprofit is trying to do that. We're a local organization and just trying to do what we do really well, and really efficiently and effectively. But the theme I'm getting to with all of this is just like resilience and adaptability. Like, you need to be resilient. You need to go through the ups and the downs with strength, and then you need to be adaptable to survive and thrive. And I think where I see people fall short is when they're not resilient and they give up, or that coincides with like unwillingness to adapt when things change. Um, so those are probably my two things that I think carry through startups to nonprofits, with what we do and what our community does.
And also like your long-term view, right? Like you stuck with it for 4 years. And I think there's often not enough of that long-term perspective for nonprofits. It's like, this year, what did you do? And now all of a sudden that's what you're judged on, right? And to have a 4-year horizon, it takes a lot of patience and perseverance.
There are a lot of common threads, and it's such a good question, because another one I just thought of on that is, the things that you do behind closed doors and in the early days really matter. Like, I can't tell you how many people have come back 4 years later who were like a butter ambassador for us when we were, just getting off the ground, and who were, early supporters who are now like vendors or a nonprofit that's really important, or brought Givebutter to the news outlet that they work for now. I mean, it's just amazing, the ripple effect. So over time, it snowballs. Like, everything you do snowballs, and people remember, and those things like have a lasting impression. And yeah, basically just be a good person. It's not that hard.
Absolutely. Well, Max, thank you so much for joining us, and always great to have you and learn from you. So I appreciate you sharing a
Yeah.
lot of stories.
Thanks for the opportunity to share, Mitch. Proud to count you as a friend and a supporter of what you do.
Thanks for coming by. Be sure to visit joinpond.com and jump in when you're ready.